This is a book called The Circle of Fire, written by Don Miguel Ruiz. He wrote The Four Agreements, if you're familiar with that one. It says, self-love is completely different from selfishness. Selfishness says, if you love me, you have to put up with all my emotional garbage. You have to put up with my anger, my judgments, and never leave me. To tell others that you love them and then to abuse them is not love. It's selfishness. Self-love gives you the power to break all the lies you were programmed to believe. Lies that say, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not strong enough, I can't make it. With self-love, you are no longer afraid to face responsibilities in your life, to face problems and resolve them as soon as they arise. Why? Because you can trust yourself completely to make choices that support you, and you never set up circumstances that go against you.
And for Mark, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It would be better to enter life crippled than to have hands and go into Gehenna where the fire never goes out. If your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better to enter life crippled than to have 2 feet and be thrown into Gehenna. If your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. It would be better to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be drawn into Gehenna, where the worm never dies and the fire never goes out.
Would you pray with me? Divine Essence, we open our hearts and our minds and our souls to your presence within us and around us. We seek wisdom. We seek our highest path. And we are here seeking many things. May we find that which we seek. And may the meditations of each of our hearts and the words of my mouth be filled with your wisdom and your insight. Amen. So if you had ever had any question in your mind about whether you should really take everything that Jesus said and everything that the Bible has ever said completely literally, this passage should cure you of that. Because clearly Jesus did not mean for people to actually cut off their hands and their feet and pluck out their eyes, or we'd have a world of blind, handless, footless people out there, wouldn't we? So, it's a metaphor. As you read the commentaries for this passage, it's interesting that most of them point us back to 1 Corinthians, which was written long before the Gospel of Mark. And maybe some of you remember that in the letter to 1 Corinthians, Paul writes another metaphor about how each person is part of the body of Christ. You're a hand, or a foot, or you're an eye, or you're a head, or you're whatever. And each part of the body is different but important. So the suggestion about this passage is that at some point in the early Christian church, the small communities decided they needed to start coming up with some regulations, if you will, about what to do with people who are not following the pattern of acceptable behavior. And so the suggestion in this passage is that, well, it's better for the whole. If the hand causes you to sin, you cut it off. If the foot causes you to sin, you cut it off. It was sort of a model for excommunication, if you look at it in that way. It was a way for that early community to say, if they're not going to follow the rules, perhaps it's better that they go. I'm not going down that road today, because it doesn't apply to all of you wonderful people. And I think there's another way to look at this passage that makes a little more sense for our lives today. The heart of this passage, to me, sort of seems to be a call to conscious action. To conscious action, and choosing to do the action which is best for yourself and best for the whole. As human beings, we have these egos, and we have physical desires, and we have emotions, and oftentimes all of those things sort of prompt us to make decisions and do things that are perhaps not best for ourselves and for the whole. And this passage says we need to be aware of what we're doing, what we're saying, how we're treating ourselves, how we're treating others, and we need to start to make the best choices for all of the above. And sometimes that might involve cutting something off, stopping something, getting rid of a temptation, maybe, so that we can live as best as we possibly can. And the result, sort of, if we follow the metaphor, is that if we don't start to make choices that are better for us, we end up in our own self-created hell. And we end up disconnected from the divine, out of relationship, and in dysfunctional relationships with ourselves and with those around us. So as I thought about this, it kind of said to me, this passage speaks about tough self-love. Tough self-love. We've all heard the phrase tough love. So if I ask you what tough love is, what is tough love? What does it involve?
Doing the best for someone in your family even if it doesn't feel good.
Okay, so doing the best for someone in your family, somebody that you love dearly. You want the best for them, and sometimes you have to do something that doesn't feel the best, is difficult to do. Sometimes you have to let go.
Standing your ground.
Standing your ground. Speaking your truth to somebody, even when it might be difficult to say or difficult to hear.
Saying no when the person doesn't hear no.
Saying no. So sometimes setting boundaries or constraints. The teenager that gets mixed up with the wrong crowd, and you go, I'm sorry, you don't get to hang with them anymore. Sometimes we say no. I saw a hand. Didn't I? No?
Speaking truth to power.
Speaking truth to power. How about just simply not enabling or ignoring negative behavior from someone you love? Asking people to be accountable and responsible for their own actions. I think all of those are really good examples of tough love. This passage suggests to me we need to have tough love for ourselves. That all of those things that apply to everybody else also apply to ourselves if we are truly going to love ourselves. And Jesus said, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Somehow we always lose that little end piece. It should come first. As you love yourselves, so you could go love everybody else. So tough love for ourselves. It means that we're honest with ourselves about what's going on in our lives. What's good for us, what's not good for us. And that can be a difficult thing to do. And yet we're being asked to be conscious of taking care of our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being as part of the spiritual path. Because we're everything that we are. We don't get to just divorce part of it and say, well, I can let my body go to heck in a handbasket because, oh, it's not my spirit. No, it doesn't work that way. We're all in us. So, how do we think about this? If I asked you, what is something that you do that brings out the best in you? What brings you joy? What brings you wholeness? What brings you life? What's healthiest for you, for your body, your emotions, your spirit? Name some things. Exercise. Brenda? Is that what you were going to say? Okay. Top of the list. Exercise. Laughter. Sure. Music. What else is best for you? Coloring? Okay. Dancing. Is that what I heard? Eating right.
Being outside.
Being outside.
Drinking lots of water.
Drinking lots of water.
Fishing.
Oh, fishing.
Fishing.
Sharing.
Reading.
Reading.
Meditating.
Meditate.
Helping others.
Helping others. Okay. So then what's the worst thing what makes you feel the worst? Not doing any of that. What sucks the life out of you? Not getting enough rest.
Self-pity.
Self-pity.
People not using their directionals.
People not using their directionals, if you didn't hear that. What sucks the life? Anybody know a person who sucks the life out of that?
Toxic people.
Toxic people. And toxic situations, for that matter. Anything else? What's worst for you?
Trying to be all things to all.
Trying to be all things to all people.
Being dishonest.
Being dishonest.
Living up to others' expectations,
Living up to others' expectations,
whether or not realistic.
when they're not realistic. Or setting expectations for ourselves that are not realistic.
Avoiding the truth.
Avoiding the truth.
Overindulging or self-medicating.
Overindulging, self-medicating,
Self-doubt.
self-doubt,
Jealousy.
jealousy, beating up on yourself. All kinds of things are worse for you. So it'd be easy for us to say, okay, well, all those things that are best for you, just do those. And just don't do any of the other things, right? As Don Miguel Ruiz says, he says, we get to make the choice to do that which supports us or not. To set up circumstances that are healthy for us and good for us or not. And sometimes it's not quite as simple as, okay, I'm just going to cut off that hand or that foot. Situations are not always that black and white and not always that easy. But then, can we make the decision to make it the best we can? To set the boundaries that we need to set around the toxic people if we can't just say bye-bye. What can we do to help ourselves? A tough self-love for ourselves that keeps us healthy in all kinds of ways. So I found this wonderful article that had a number of suggestions to things we can do. The first one was work on your bad habits. Because we all know what they are. We know what our bad habits are and what we need to work on. And so if we're going to love ourselves, we need to work on them and not ignore them, enable them, or at least we need to set boundaries around them. Okay, I know that I shouldn't drink soda. Diet Coke is one of my vices, but I just have one a day. Okay, so I've set a boundary, at least, around something that's not necessarily healthy for me. One of the other things she said, don't get caught up in your victimhood. So don't get stuck in that place of poor me, the hurt or the trauma or the drama of your life. Because don't let that simply define all of who you are. There's a certain energy, I'll grant you that, to being in that place of being the victim. Oh, nothing ever goes right in my life, and it's horrible, and blah, 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 and then, everything else gets explained away into this whatever it is, and we become the victim. We need to let go of that. We are more than our victimhood. We are more than the things that go wrong in our life. And so we work on being positive and seeing the blessings. And if that doesn't work, then there's point number 3, which is go to therapy. Right? I have spent my time in a therapist's office because sometimes we need an impartial third person to help us look at our lives from a different perspective, to help us through a situation or family problems, or make the right decisions, or deal with our baggage and our past and our shame and our guilt, or whatever it is. There is no shame around going to a therapist. What that is tough self-love, okay? You need some help. This is not getting better. Take yourself to somebody and deal with it. Which sort of brings us to going to doctors in general. I mean, we all kind of go, oh no, I'll just wait a few more days and maybe if that gets better, then maybe I'll go, right? Julie's nephew's wife has her hand in an immobilizer, has for 3 weeks. I'm like, oh Mary, what's wrong? Oh, I fell 3 weeks ago. Why'd you go to the doctor? Well, no. Is it getting any better? Well, no, not really. If I take meds and mask the pain, then it's good. But it's still swollen and it's still almost like tough self-love. If it were your kid, you'd take him to the doctor. Take yourself to the doctor. What appointments haven't you made? What tests haven't you done that we need to do? I finally sucked it up and went and had my physical and everything that I should have had done 2 years ago. I did it all this summer. All the tests, all the icky stuff, it's all done. Tough self-love. It was just cleaning house. Oh my gosh, the poor little lady next door, she fell and hurt herself and she's been in a nursing home ever since and they're pulling their hair out trying to clean out the house. We all know the story, right? We all need to start there sooner or later and just start cleansing. It's good for the soul. If you hadn't noticed, cleaning your closet actually feels good for the soul. It's like, wow, I can breathe a little bit more and I can all go get new stuff. That's not really the point, but there's something healthy about letting go not only of persons or situations, but sometimes of stuff that you just don't need anymore. I made myself a cheat sheet that I need to hold way out here to see. Oh, stop comparing. I will never be as cute and funny as Ellen DeGeneres, nor will I be as kind and benevolent as Mother Teresa or sing as well as Tony. I just get to be me. And it does me no good to beat myself up about not being any of those other people. So I'd be the best me I can be with the gifts that I have, and try to be happy with that. Do the hard stuff. Look at our lives. What doesn't work? What are we not happy about? And then instead of just complaining about it, actually take steps to try and fix it, to move towards something healthier. Which sometimes includes the whole creating boundaries that we've talked about and constraints around ourselves. And if you can't stay away from that toxic family member, then you can at least create boundaries around that relationship. If the late night burrito is what's getting you, then stop buying the late night burrito. Boundaries and constraints. There was one more that I forgot. Social media. Oh, maybe you all don't have that issue, but the world needs to set boundaries around social media. It should just be really an uplifting place. If you are friends or follow pages or have liked things that make you angry every time you look at them, Unlike them, unfriend them, unfollow it. Stick to things that are uplifting. There's enough downers in this world. If you watch the news too much, stop it. Because the news is never going to lift you up. I understand you want to know what's going on in the world, but 6 hours of CNN is not going to do you any good at all. Let it go. Enjoy life. You get one life. Is that really how you want to spend it? So honest looking at ourselves. It's really just what it's all about. If we want to be, to live with joy, that deep inner joy and that deep inner peace, where are we shooting ourselves in the foot? Where are we our own worst enemies? And we know it. So we just don't like it. We don't want to change. We don't want to do the hard stuff. We don't want to eat right. We don't want to exercise. I don't want to go to the doctor. Well, tough. That's why it's tough self-love. Because it's what's good for you. This is not the, oh, I have self-love, I need to get a manicure and a massage. And there's nothing wrong with that. But self-love is more than, I can do anything I want and have anything I want because I'm wonderful. No, it's I'm wonderful, so I need to take care of me. Got it? So find one thing. This is your assignment. I know it's like hard because I gave you a whole list. One thing. One thing to work on. And once you start feeling better about that, my guess is you'll want to find one more thing to work on because you'll feel better.